I think, should we go into Staten Island itself now?
Mm-hmm.
Staten Island has been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah.
It's been surprising, but not. I guess I tried to go in, as I do with most things, with as little expectations as possible in order to just experience what it is at face value.
Yeah. I think I tried to do that too, which is not how I experience most things. And I also had a lot of expectations. And I'm noticing how things I expected are not there.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, what I expected Staten Island to be was full suburbs, all firemen and policemen, very homogenous. That's what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
Detached homes, maybe some apartment buildings, greenery. I knew there were parks. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, not true. It's pretty diverse. There's a lot of detached single family homes, but there's also a lot of condos and apartment buildings. Doesn't feel like the suburbs at least where we were this week. Most of the walk, I would say, does not feel like the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section that does,
Mm-hmm.
but that section was small in this week's walk.
There were a couple of spots when you were at the studio that I saw that were like suburbs too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can get to them at some point. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And the primary route of our walk was it was not suburban. And the only space where we did go that was suburban was as a consequence of us having to alter our route due to an area being closed.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So I did a little bit of research just to have some facts and figures here.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that stood out to me, or that I thought was worth sharing, I didn't do a ton of research, but the median income right near the ferry, because this is something we talked about. The ferry goes right to downtown, the financial district. We have been super surprised that there aren't more condos and sort of like luxury-esque buildings or restaurants or coffee shops or any of the things that you would typically see in a gentrified neighborhood, like Williamsburg or like any of the neighborhoods that are sort of really easy access to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And St. George, which is the neighborhood that's right near the ferry, has a median income of $46,646.
Okay.
All of Staten Island has a median income of $79,200. So apparently the further south you get, the more money people are making.
Interesting.
I guess it's the people that are driving in over the Verrazano as opposed to the people that are taking the ferry.
Yeah.
Or maybe people are driving to the ferry and taking the ferry from there.
Mm-hmm.
This is speculation. That wasn't research. The numbers I found online, but my thoughts on why that is, I don't have any real answers.
Yeah. Yeah, we would really like to be able to talk to either an urban planner or a politician or somebody with knowledge that's beyond speculation as to why Staten Island in this area is how it is. But it is a bit of a mystery to Jesse and I how it hasn't been pumped up as more of an area at some point. You know, between people that are Wall Street people or artist type people, how this area near the ferry hasn't become something more because, you know, you talk about the reasons that an area becomes, you know, gentrified or built up. And one of the reasons is views, right? And like the view of the city is stunning from that
It's
side.
really beautiful. There's a lot of big hills right near the ferry. And from the top of the hill, you can just see all of downtown.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it really, one day it was foggy and climbing the hill to go on the route with the homes around, it really just felt like a San Francisco situation to me.
Yeah.
And so that is appealing to most people. They want to wake up and they want to, if you're going to settle somewhere, even if you just like stop considering it as soon as you live there for more than a month, like usually people move to an area where they can show people what their view looks like. So that's one
Sure.
thing. Second thing, convenience to the city. I mean, granted, it's a boat ride, so people are have a hard enough time taking a bus over the subway. There's an extra step there. So maybe the fact that it's a boat is putting people off. But the flip side of that is it's a beautiful view, and also like a thing that you could take people who are visiting you to see.
Yeah.
So
And it's free.
yeah, it's free
We're
and it's
we've gotten
reliable.
so used to using, I mean, I have not used the ferry system really at all because I have no reason to. But the people that live in Greenpoint or Red Hook or like the other places that are on the water that don't have great train access in New York use the ferry system now to get into the city a lot or to get from different parts of Brooklyn. I know we have a lot of friends that use that system. And I think that those ferries are part of the MTA. So you actually have to pay for those.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Staten Island ferry is free
Yeah,
and it goes right downtown.
yeah, yeah. It's very confusing to me why it hasn't been more of a thing. I would say that if you get off the ferry, there are some off-putting aesthetics that might be hindering the situation. And by that I mean, I think because it is the hub for all the buses that leave, and then it's also the subway hub for the rest of Staten Island, it's just transportation focused. So you leave the ferry terminal, and then it's just a lot of concrete, a lot of roads. And I think the Staten Island car culture has something to do with that, prioritizing
Yeah.
travel of vehicles. So you get out and you're like, well, where am I? All you
Yeah.
see are kind of the terminal behind you, and then in front of you, kind of courthouse buildings, and just not like a lot of vibrancy culturally
I don't
right there.
I don't think that the courthouse buildings are aesthetically unpleasing. They're old buildings and they're kind of pretty, but there isn't a lot going on. There isn't a
No,
lot of activity.
no. And I don't know really how you fix that, because if it is the main choke point to all sorts of transportation, it's probably going to need to be that way. I mean, maybe there's some way around it. I don't really know. I'm sure you could get creative to create a welcoming space, but like
Yeah.
really, you get out and if you don't know where you're going or you don't have a destination, it kind of feels a little like you feel a little lost or just a little aimless and pointless, and think like, well, I got left. It's like being left on the side of the highway or something. So,
Although there's also that little mall area
well, that's
where
another
there's
thing
like an American Eagle and a Haagen-Dazs and a
that
Gap.
I mean, I think that demonstrates the priorities of the affluent Staten Islanders, the people that are making
Mhm.
the $79,000 a year, in that the first thing that when you get off the boat, before you see all this, roads, are the New York's premier waterfront outlet mall. Like they really add all these qualifiers.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I will say it's well made. I thought to myself walking through it, like, it'd be really cool if this was just like a series of art galleries or something.
Yeah. Yeah, if you like those basic trendy box stores, then great.
Yeah,
It's great. It's like a really nice view while you're promenading around shopping for jeans.
yeah. And so that makes me wonder if that is the reason why Staten Island is what it is. I mean, it's like the you think about the politicians or the people that were involved in making that space what it was.
Mhm.
It's like culturally, what do our inhabitants want the most? And
Right.
it was that, and then the baseball stadium, which the baseball stadium is really cool.
Yeah, the baseball stadium is really cool. I'd
R-
like to go there when it's open
Yeah,
again.
right now it's just a field of geese.
There's a lot of geese there.
Yeah, but and
It's
like
probably so gross.
yeah, and they have not maintained the field because they don't need to.
Yeah.
But it's right on the water. It's right adjacent to the ferry terminal, and the outfield is the view of the skyline.
Yeah.
So they did a very good job with that. But yeah,
It's the minor league team.
yes,
I
the
don't know if we
Staten
said
Island
that.
Yankees.
So
Yeah,
I think it makes sense to have a really beautiful view behind the baseball.
right, right.
Baseball games are long enough as it is, and then when it's the minor leagues, you're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
what am I going to see here?
So and then to the if you're looking at the Manhattan and you go to the left, that's when there's like a promenade,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like kind of run down, like a lot of like weeds growing and things like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally fine. We went and walked there, and it's very nice to see everything, but it doesn't really look like there's a lot of intention behind it. It's whenever it was built was the last time people thought much about it. It feels like.
It does feel like that.
So
Yeah, and then very quickly, once you get past that, it becomes industrial.
hmm yeah, yeah,
But that, I guess, I say very quickly, but that even, for us, that's an early part of the walk. But for people just coming in to visit, I don't know if they'd even get past that because it is probably a mile and a half or 2 miles down.
yeah. So as far as before we start moving on to the walk, just that St. George area, I feel like it's a matter of when, not if, it will be transformed into some area, but
Mm-hmm.
that if could be a very long time.
Yeah, which in a way is, I don't know. I don't know how the residents would feel about the gentrification coming to Staten Island. I can't say
Yeah.
because I haven't asked anyone and I have only been in Staten Island for 1 week. Have never really spent any time there in my life before, so I
Yeah.
can't even really suppose what people might want.
Yeah. I mean, that area around there definitely feels more urban than, even though we're saying that there was only like one chunk of suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
it feels a lot more like industrial in other parts too,
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I'd say that area of St. George, especially the east part of St. George, feels more like a city.
Yeah.
There's, it's like delis and barber shops and some hot food places, churches. There's a soccer shop
Yeah.
that sells soccer jerseys. That was one of a kind.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots of sort of just standard shops
Yeah.
for essentials.
Yeah. There was also a lot of activity going on at any one point. Like
Yeah.
there's police there often. There were, at one point I was walking and there was a man on the ground just kind of yelling,
Oh.
like, and then an ambulance came by. It
Oh.
was unclear if he was hurt or not hurt. I
Yeah.
don't, it was just a lot of
What was
like,
he yelling?
it was more just like a kind of a groaning yell.
Oh. Oh.
Honestly, it looked like he had gotten shot in the butt or something.
Oh,
But
God.
like, I don't think he had. So it also kind of looked like he was faking being. It was a very weird scene because there was just one other person standing like 6 or 8 feet away from him, just kind of like observing
Yeah.
while he was groan yelling. This is a younger guy,
Yikes.
and then the ambulance came up, and I
Yeah.
could still hear him like groan yelling for a while.
Wow.
So I
Well,
don't really
hope
know what
he's
was going
okay.
on there. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
was fine. He wasn't like yelling out in pain. It was
Okay.
more yeah. So just kind of stuff like that each day. There was
Yeah.
like a
Maybe it's the same
weird.
guy that growled at us.
Oh, it wasn't the same guy that growled at us.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a different part of town too. But one further thing about this general area, and I would say general like within 3 to 4 mile radius
Mm-hmm.
of this whole area, amazing parks
Yeah.
relative to what you would think. Because we're also just describing like that this area is mostly like bodegas and like barbershops and very like urban, but then very close to some parks that if they were in another borough, you would already know about them. Like
Yeah.
between Clove Lakes Park, I believe is the name of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna do this off the top and see if I make it. There's Silver Lake Park,
Mm-hmm.
and then Goodhue Park, which connects to Allison Pond Park,
Mm.
which was suggested to us by our friend Layla, who works for the
Mm-hmm.
Parks Department.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all like in this tight cluster and are each really pleasant parks.
Yeah.
The Goodhue Park is a converted Boy Scout camp, so it has a lot of open fields and set up areas for basketball and play. And then you go in, and there's a wood section with a little lake, and they had this like amphitheater set up with stumps. So it looked like this druid summoning circle or something with like 100 stumps and a stage in front of it. And if you keep walking into it, it turns into a stream, which is the Allison Pond Park. And yeah, and then from there you are in the more the higher end suburban areas, which
Mm-hmm.
this was on a
Mm-hmm.
day that
Mm-hmm.
Jesse was not with me. But it's crazy you go from more like urban residences and buildings to just going through this park to like a totally like Tudory green
Oh,
lawns
wow.
and very hilly there.
Huh.
And then yeah, from there you can go to Silver Lake Park,
Right.
which this is the first instance I've ever experienced of this, and I think the first instance in the city. And it also speaks to, I think, some of the value system of Staten Island. Silver Lakes, as well as La Tourette Park, which we'll talk about at some point,
Mm.
has a golf course inside of the park.
Can I tell you about that golf course?
Yes, please.
It's on top of a mass grave for Irish immigrants that came over after the potato famine and died of disease.
Wow. So that's, I think, part of what keeps people away too from Staten Island is this. We could talk, and we will talk probably for the whole month about why there are some amazing things there, and people will be like, "Yeah, but it's a trash zone," or
Yeah.
like it's just a place where New York City, the entire boroughs, uses to hide things and
Mm-hmm.
like get rid of problems.
Or at least used to.
Sure.
And that's then what these things are made on top of
Yeah,
to sort of literally cover it up,
Right.
not necessarily in the way that we think of that term, but just a way to beautify what used to be New York City's dump.
right. So the thing about walking around in a golf course is that you have to pay attention to what's going on.
Right.
And it's just funny that I think when I think about more conservative blue collar areas, they do like having golf courses around, but typically those types of areas aren't in a city. They're usually in a space where there's more land.
More space.
So you wouldn't think out in Jersey or Long Island or Connecticut to go to the golf course for leisure. You
Right.
would go to the park, or you live in an area where there's enough trees that you don't even really like have a yearning for that. But here it's like multi-use, and particularly in La Tourette Park, I came out of an area that was a trail, and then I'm walking parallel to a par three, and it's like, oh wow, I actually have to pay attention to this man's swing
Yeah.
because it might be coming right for me.
Yeah, you don't want to add yourself to that Irish mass grave.
Right. So I don't think that's necessarily the greatest, way to design something. But I mean, I guess I give them props for there was a desire for that in the community.
Yeah,
And
so they got that out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And when you have only so much space. So part of that park, actually, they designed and built that park as an answer for recreational space for people as Staten Island was becoming more populated.
Right.
And the politicians recognized how difficult it was for Staten Island's population to get to Central Park or Prospect Park, but they wanted to have their own version of that.
Right. And I don't know if that's referencing Silver Lake specifically.
It was, yeah.
Clove Lakes, which is right near the Silver Lake, is what I would say it's longer, and there's a lake kind of running through the middle. It feels more like the aspects of a Central Park where there's like more architecture and like there's a design feature to that. And
Okay.
the Silver Lake, at least the area I've walked through thus far, and I think we get a couple of other cracks at it before the month is up, feels more like the expanse of nature / the thoroughfare, kind of like where people do the running.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that might be in part because I think they have the main road closed for the COVID walking hours.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So, but yeah, Clove Lakes was, I would say it's worth coming out to check out. All of these, if you're a fan of nature, are worth coming out to see.
Yeah.
Because I think the Goodhue Park is probably a 35-40 minute walk from the ferry. Or if you wanted to take a car or something,
There might even be a bus or a
Yeah, there might be. Yeah.
train.
But
I don't know.
you
I
get
don't
a
think
lift
there's
or
a train.
you get a lift or something and it's 6 minutes out to there.
Right.
And then you can walk through that to Silver Lake, to Clove Lake, and then it's a nice way to spend 3 or 4 hours.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a restaurant in Clove Lake that's like fancies itself like a Tavern on the Green or something. We might go
It
at some
looks
point.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty. It's right on the lake, and yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah. So I think that wraps up that section of Staten Island,
Yeah.
which is the
Sort of inland, north, slightly west. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The area that seems to me like it probably could be converted into something
Right.
different, something quote unquote more valuable or whatnot. But yeah, I think, and we'll see as we go further on in Staten Island, there just is this sense of identity about Staten Island that is a combination of people joking about it and I think also people having a lot of pride in what it is.
Yeah. There might be a lot of pushback from bringing things in. The first day that we were there was not a walking day, and I took a walk myself. Didn't expect it to be so long. I just wanted to go get a cup of coffee, and I had to walk about 45 minutes to find a coffee shop that wasn't a Dunkin' Donuts, and then it was closed on a Sunday morning, and I went to a local tavern type place that had just opened up for the day, and she recommended a place to go and said, oh yeah, they have great coffee at Jay's on the Bay. And I was like, okay, great, thank you. It was 5 miles south of where I was.
Yeah, well, the car.
Which makes sense if you have a car.
Yeah.
But if you're on foot, like I just want to walk out and grab a cup of coffee and go back home. I don't want to, I love to walk, obviously, but I don't really want to take a 10-mile walk just to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
So it's interesting. But, plenty of places in the country have Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or McDonald's as the place to get coffee. It's just living in Brooklyn especially, I'm so used to being able to walk in any direction for less than 10 minutes and find some sort of latte or
Right.
something.
And I think that might be the selling point for somebody that's a real estate person in Staten Island that's looking to develop it. You would try and get people to the area that have in their heads, I like New York City and I love my car. You know, that they
Yeah.
want to be in this area. And there's a lot of people that just can't think of living without a car.
Yeah, I mean, I liked when you had a car.
Right. Right. But there are people that want to be in this area, but like just think I could never live without my car. And if that's the case,
Hmm.
Staten Island seems like the place. And you can have it for weekends, or you can have it to drive around Staten Island itself. And then when you want to come into the city, you can do that.
Yeah.